Hey mathematicians, today we are going to learn how to calculate percentages. One thing we need to know about percentages is that they are always out of 100. Cent means 100. So whenever we are calculating percentages, that means we are comparing a number to 100. So you can see here we've got a fraction set up. It is a percent over 100, and generally percentages are a part to whole relationship. When we see the words is, that usually indicates the part, and of usually indicates the whole amount. So number one is an I do problem. We are being asked to find 10% of 80. I'm going to start by showing you on a tape diagram, and I'm going to first take a strip that is worth 80, and I know that there are 10 sets of 10 in 100, so I'm going to break it into 10 equal pieces. So there's my strip. It is worth 80 units, whatever it is, and each of these boxes is 10%. Well, since I broke it into 10 equal pieces, I can figure out the numerical value by taking 80 and dividing it by 10. Each of these boxes must be worth 8 because 8 sets of 10 gets me to 80. Now, sometimes drawing a diagram is not always the best option. Maybe you don't have time or you don't have space. We can set up a proportion, just like this, to solve this problem. We would first write 10% as a fraction. Percents are always out of 100, so our percent goes over 100, and that's going to be equal to something. It is of 80, so that tells me of 80 is the whole amount. That goes on the bottom. Is over of, and now I'm looking for this missing value. So I'm basically creating an equivalent fraction. I need to figure out how I can get from one fraction to the next, or how I can get from one part of the fraction to the next. So I think this time I'm going to go from the whole amount to the part, because I know 100 divided by 10 gets me to 10. So the relationship between the part and whole is being multiplied or divided by 10. Since I'm dividing by 10 to get from 100% to 10%, I'm going to divide by 10 here, and that's where we get our 8. 8 is 10% of 80. Let's do the same thing with 25% of 250. I know that in 100%, there are 4 sets of 25, so each of these is 25%. And this whole tape is worth 250. Since I have 4 boxes that all add up to 250, I can do 250 divided by 4 to figure out what one box is worth. That gets me 62 and 5/10. So there it is using a tape diagram. But if you'd prefer to use a proportion, we can do that too. Let's start off by writing our percent. 25% is always out of 100 because all percents are out of 100. This is a part to whole relationship, is over of. Of 250 means the whole amount is 250. So now I got to figure out how to get from one amount to the next. Well, I know that if I want to go from 100 to 25, I can divide by 4. So I'm going to do 250 divided by 4. And that tells me x is equal to 62.5. Now let's pretend I didn't want to solve it that way. Maybe I wanted to go from one fraction to the next. If I want to go from 100 to 250, I can multiply by something. 100 times k equals 250. If I wanted to find out what number that is, I just divide by 100. That tells me that k is 2.5, so I can multiply 100 by 2 and 5/10. I can multiply 25 by 2 and 5/10, and guess what I'm going to get? 62 and 5/10. Number 3 is a U-try problem. You're being asked to find 50% of 90. So you can take your tape diagram and break it into 50% pieces, or you can set up your proportion. Please pause the video now and come back when you're ready to check your answer. Welcome back. Hopefully you arrived at the answer of 45. If we take our bar that's equal to 90 and break it into two equal pieces because there's two sets of 50% and 100%. We see that each piece is worth 45, or you can set up your proportion and solve it that way. Number 4 is another you-do problem, so go ahead and get that set up. You can either use tape or you can use a proportion. Press pause now, solve that, and come back when you're ready to check it. Welcome back. Hopefully you found out that x is equal to 225. If you solve that using a proportion, I think the easiest way is to just do the whole times 3, which means you do the part times 3. 75 times 3 gets you 225. But if you wanted to use a tape diagram, that is valid. It's a little harder to do a tape diagram because I can't divide up 100% into 75%. What I can do is divide up my 100% into 25% pieces. So this is 25%, this is 25%, this is 25%, this is 25%. And I know if I want to get to 75%, I would need 3 of those pieces. And so here you can see mathematically that 75 times 3 is still what I need to do to get to my final percentage. Okay, number 5 is a little different. This is an ID problem. We are being asked to find what percent of 80 is 20. So I'm going to set up my ratio. Ooh, not with yellow. Is over of, right, part over whole, is 20, so 20 goes on top, of 80, 80 goes on bottom, and I'm looking for the percent. I don't know it, so it's x over 100. X is my unknown amount. So I can solve it this way. I can recognize, hey, I can do 80 divided by 4 to get to 20, and if I didn't know that, I could do 80 divided by 20 to get 4, and that means I can just divide by 4 to get to 20. So I would do 100 divided by 4 to get x. I could also set up a tape diagram. I'm going to use pieces that are 20 and see how many of them I need to get to 80. So I've got 40 here, 60, and now I've got 80. So if this whole piece is 100, I've now divided it into 4 equal pieces. How many or what percentage is one of those pieces? Well, when I do 100 divided by 4, that gets me 25. So I get 25 either way. Number 6, what percent of 90 is 45? So let's do our tape diagram first. I'm using 45 as my pieces, that's the part, and I'm going to keep using 45s until I get to 90. Well, guess what? I only needed 2 of them. So this is 100%, and I've broken it into 2 different pieces. Well, half of 100% is 50%. If I wanted to prove that using a proportion, I would set up is over of, part over whole. So is 45 goes on top, of 90 goes on bottom. And I'm looking for the percent. So x over 100. I know I can do 90 divided by 2 to get to 45. If I didn't know that, I could do 90 divided by 45. And that tells me the relationship between part and whole is 2. So I would do 100 divided by 2, and that gets me 50%. There you have it. All right, number 7 is a you-do problem. What percent of 63 is 9? So go ahead and pause the video here. When you are ready to check your work, press play and come back to check it. Welcome back. You could use the tape diagram where you would use pieces that are 9 to add up to 63. You can see that that took 7 sets to get to 63. Why? Because 9 times 7 is 63. If the whole tape is 100, I want to figure out how much one piece is, so I would do 100 divided by 7. I get that big long number. Or if you wanted to use a proportion, you would say is 9 goes on top, of 63 goes on bottom. We're looking for the percent, so that's x over 100. And I know that 63 divided by 7 will get me to 9. If I didn't know that, I could do 63 divided by 9. That will tell me the part to whole relationship is a 7 times difference. So I would divide 100 by 7 to get x, and that gets me that big long answer. I went ahead and rounded to the hundredths place, which is where this 8 is. The 5 next door says go ahead and round up. Number 8 is another you-do problem. What percent of 81 is 3? So you can use a tape diagram or you can set up your proportion. Go ahead and solve that. Press pause now. Come back when you're ready to check your answer. All right, you can see here that we got a continuing number, 3.703, forever and ever. We're going to go ahead and round to the hundredths place, which is where the 0 is. 3 says stay the same, so 3.70%. You could make a tape diagram, but it takes 27 sets of 3 to get to 81. I don't think you want to draw out 27 sets of 3. So I did the proportion here because it's a little bit faster. All right, number 9 is an I do problem, so I'm going to set that up. It says 5 is 35% of what number? Pretend this what is not there. Never there. 5 is 35% of what number? So let's go ahead and start with our percentage because I know what those are always out of. 35 is a percent, so it's out of 100. And then of what means we don't know the whole amount. Of is the whole amount. So I'm going to put this down here where the whole amount goes. 5 is goes on top. Now I've got a proportion. I can set that up. I could either figure out what number would take me from 100 to 35. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I could figure out what number gets me from 35 to 5. I know 35 divided by 7 will get me to 5. So I would do 100 divided by 7. And that's going to get me 14.285, blah, 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 forever and ever. And we're going to round that to the hundredths place and call that 14.29. There's no percent. 14.29 is the whole amount. Okay. I could set up a tape diagram, but like finding out how many 35s are in 100, that's a little tricky. I might have to take it down to 5%. I think it's a little easier for us just to set up the proportion like that. Number 10, 7 is 10% of what number? So let's go ahead and set up our percent first. Percents are always out of 100. And we've got is over of. So of what number means we don't know the whole amount. 7 is means 7 is the part. So I can go from 10 to 7 if I wanted to, or I could go from 100 to 10. Use whatever relationship looks easier to you. For me, going whole to part is a little bit easier because I know that 100 to 10, I just divide by 10, right? To go from 10 to 100, I multiply by 10. So if I'm going from part to the whole amount, I'm going to multiply by 10. If I go from part to the whole amount, I'm going to multiply by 10. 7 times 10 is 70, so that is my final answer. 11 is a you-do problem, but I will help you out and get it set up. 18 is 72% of what number? Start with your percent. 72 is a percent, so it goes out of 100. Of what means we don't know the whole amount. Of goes on the bottom. And 18 is 18 goes on top. So remember, if you're not sure how to get from one number to another, try dividing, okay? Pause the video here, check your work, and see what you can figure out. Okay, here you can see that we found out that x is equal to 25. If you weren't sure how to get there, I did set up an equation over here to show how can I figure out how to get from 72 to 18. Well, I know 18 times something is equal to 72, so I set up that equation, and then I'm going to divide by 18 on both sides, and that tells me that that something is 4. So I can do 72 divided by 4 to get to 18. That means I would do 100 divided by 4 to get the missing whole amount on my other fraction. 100 divided by 4 is 25. 30 is 20% of what number? So set up your proportion. Press pause now. Come back when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, here you can see we got the answer of x equals 150. You can look at that by looking at the part to whole relationship. 20 is the part. I multiply it by 5 to get to the whole of 100%. So I would do 30, which is the part, times 5 to get the whole amount of 150. If you wanted to go from one fraction to the other, making an equivalent fraction, I need to know what number can I multiply 20 by to get to 30. I set up an equation over here, 20 times something equals 30. Divide both sides by 20, and that gets me 1.5. So I can go from part amount to part amount by multiplying by 1.5. If I do that for the numerator of my fraction, I have to do that for the denominator of my fraction as well. 100 times 1.5 gets me 150 either way. Okay, go ahead and fill out what do you need to know to use a tape diagram, what do you need to know in general for solving percent problems, and self-assess. How did you do and how do you know it?